Hey guys, VaulSC here, hope that you are doing well. So this video today is going to be about two things. I played in a local Conquest event for just 1,500 points for one day with just 8 players. So I'll be talking a little bit about my experience at the event, the 3 games that I played with 100 kingdoms, including my list. The second thing this video is about is the patch that came out recently, which most notably increased Ashen Dawn by 10 points per regiment, plus another 10 points per additional stand, changed the Water Mage so that she can't heal them, and then messed around a little bit with Sorcerer Kings and the way that their rituals work, and Bloodlust obviously going away. So that's what this video is going to be about. Hopefully you are happy to sit here and listen to me talk for a while and do the analysis. So today's event, people call it a tournament. I don't really feel like tournament's the right word when it's just such a small scale affair. It was really fun. I'm glad we had it. It was a really good stepping stone for people who have very small collections, just wanting to try a bit of a bigger game, and of course for us, experienced players who have a lot of miniatures, just to get our teeth into something a little bit more competitive. But I still prefer 2,000 points. The game is really balanced around that, and the scenarios and the missions are really about 2,000 points. So with 1,500 points, I decided to run 100 kingdoms. Let's have a quick look at my army list. As you can see right off the bat, two units of Order of the Ashen Dawn, 2 Order of the Crimson Tower, and 2 Order of the Ashen Dawn, even though they have been nerfed. I know. So these guys used to be 240. They are now 250, and any additional stands are 90 points each. I didn't take any additional stands. Didn't take any standards, couldn't afford them. And, the mage previously was able to heal them. So what recently happened, as you guys may know, is that there was Adepticon, and a lot of people playing 100 Kingdoms took a lot of Ashen Dawn. Please watch my previous video if you'd like to see some analysis about that. But after Parabellum looked at those results and thought, okay, well, so many 100 Kingdoms players are just running Ashen Dawn. They're trying to run as many as they can. They're taking a mage to heal them. Let's make those changes. Now, just to address that, I feel like, first point, did they need to change Ashen Dawn, or could they have left them as is? And the answer to that is quite clearly, in my opinion, that they were right to make some changes, okay? So not being able to bring them back with the mage, that's a good move. Increasing their points, that's better than not increasing their points. Let's put it that way. I personally would have done it differently. I would have simply reduced them by -1 attack, make them attacks 5, and kept their points the same. Given that people still seem interested in them, and all of the lists that I'm writing still include some Ashen Dawn, maybe that just doesn't take it far enough. So I don't want to criticize Parabellum here. I think they've done really well. This is a very difficult game to balance, and it's a very difficult regiment to balance as well. Part of the problem is that, within 100 kingdoms, everybody goes directly for that, because the builds involving Ashen Dawn are much more accessible and easier to win with than the infantry-based builds. Arguably, pure infantry is actually better than using any cavalry at all, because there are some things that you can do with really good combinations of infantry blocks that are actually better for the most experienced players, but we'll talk about that in another video. The change they made to the mage is quite interesting. The mage is actually extremely good now for infantry. So when I'm writing 2,000 points lists, I'm really building around the mage. I hope to show you guys some content about the mage in future. The water mage is very, very powerful. She doesn't need to be the warlord. If you make her the warlord, she can actually reach out and heal the nearby Gilded Legion or Steel Legion or Household Guard in a lot of my lists. But she can't heal the cavalry anymore. But the thing is, getting success means you get 1 heal per success plus another 3 from the base rule from the spell. So you could heal, 5 to 9 troops, and you've got focus mostly on the mage. So that is going to be very strong. We'll talk about that a bit more in another video. But Ashen Dawn, are they balanced now? It's a really difficult thing to say. I'm about to take you through some games, but again, it's not very good data, because it's at 1,500 points, not 2,000. It's just against a few local players. It's not data from a lot of tournaments and a lot of high-level players analyzing it. Okay, so I think they still have some work to do, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. With Sorcerer Kings, it's too early for me to tell whether ritual's in a better place. I did notice that it seemed a little bit mindless how drawing a card, going through your command stack actually just adds to the rituals and makes them automatically go off very quickly. Now you have to decide, which rituals to sort of speed up with your characters, so maybe that's better, but it does feel like Sorcerer Kings have gotten a little bit of a nerf with the way that works, because the rituals should be a bit slower now. The Bloodlust change, though, is very, very good. It kind of meant that you weren't really viably able to use elementals, but now you can a bit more consistently without having to be susceptible to the Bloodlust problems. Okay, talk about that a little bit more later. But back to my army list. So at 1,500 points, this is still a very robust build in my opinion. Order of the Crimson Tower is my preference over Sealed Temple. I know everybody else loves Sealed Temple. The thing about Sealed Temple, though, is that in a straight fight, if you're just, charging and clashing and you're just going directly into combat, they definitely are not as good because they have one fewer wound and they don't have the brutal impact and the terrifying, etc. In a bigger game at 2,000 points, when you're going through a lot of different scenarios where there's like 4 or 5 different zones, that's when they really, really shine. I still prefer Order of Crimson Tower at a higher points level. At 2,000 points, sorry, 1,500 points, I think these guys are pretty strong because we are going to be playing like Forlorn Hope, Echelon, and head-to-head, so pretty intimate sort of missions here. So that's my setup. Can't afford anything else. These guys have banners because they have to charge the Order of the Ashen Dawn. They don't need the charge. They don't need the banner. Now over here, Imperial Officer with 2 units of men-at-arms, the thinking behind this is that at the smaller point scale, it's just very easy to be in a situation where you've taken a few casualties, some regiments have gone down, and you literally can't afford to move your regiment off one of your nearby objective zones, otherwise you just won't be able to score. So it kind of helps to have some really cheap scoring units in the mix. The other thing about this build too is that they can both screen for Order of the Ashen Dawn and Crimson Tower, but they can't be cleared off by shooting as easily as crossbowmen can. The officer can give them a bit more speed and bastion for one of the men-at-arms, which I find really, really useful. And just being cheap as chips is very, very helpful. And lastly, Hunter Cadre, because I feel like Bone Golems is just such a problem matchup at the moment, and also things like Jotnars and Hephaestians and things like that. To be dealing with my cavalry, these monster hunters would be quite useful. These guys are also very good in close combat, and with the screening and the distraction of other units, they can sometimes get in on a flank or something and do a lot of damage. So this is my build. The other way that you can do this sort of build is to skip this warband and have the mage instead. Given that she got nerfed in terms of healing cavalry, that's not a great choice, but if you make her a fire mage with a couple of crossbows, men-at-arms, that's the other kind of build that you can easily run here. Cool, let me just quickly talk you through the games. So this is our event, some buddies here. I was up against Ben for the first round. I'm going to skip through this game pretty quickly without analyzing it too much. Ben is a local guy. He's a dad. He spent a lot of time with family stuff, and as you can see, he's only just barely managed to put his army together. Just started painting the carries a little bit. They're already looking really good. I like his green color scheme for the flames. But he's the kind of guy who plays a little bit of First Blood, has dabbled in maybe less than 10 Last Argument games, and I'm pretty experienced now with a lot of my TTS practice and local 2,000 point games. So I had to sort of get him up to speed about some of the rules. He wasn't really, he didn't even know that drawing a character card allows you to chain the activation into the regiment that they are joined to, so he just wasn't really up to speed with a few things, and that's not his fault. It's not like, he's not an intelligent guy, he obviously is, but just a little bit less experience, so this game was a win for me, mainly due to just knowing the game better. But it's good to see a little bit more participation from people who aren't, our local guys who just play every week. Is what I'm getting at there. So he had a large block of with the Archimandrite in it in the middle there. And my plan was to have the Bastion militia, so the Bastion men-at-arms opposite them. I knew that he'd try and nuke me a little bit because this is an Archimandrite warlord. So I just wanted to survive long enough to bring the cavalry in behind them with the Hunter Cadre shooting through that gap because they're quite good at shooting legionnaires. And then hopefully once he commits a unit to my side, I can counterattack with the knights, destroy them, and he'll eventually be in a situation where he can't really move off his objective zone on his side. Otherwise, he'll not be able to score. So the Praetorians behind them won't be able to catch up as effectively, and then I can move across the battlefield after I've dealt with any sort of attackers. So the carries also a little bit mispositioned, taking a bit longer to come around the other side to get their insanity off. Against men-at-arms, they do very, very well because they're rolling against Resolve, and men-at-arms Resolve 2. Athenatoi need a bit of a buff, but they are really cool looking models. Unfortunately, the change to the rules recently with Flurry and Parry, they stop enemies from getting rerolls rather than reflecting anything. So it's not really very useful. They've kind of made them worse somehow, which is disappointing. Bone Golems is the real threat. This is the real thing that I'm most worried about, and that's why the Hunter Cadre are moving around a little bit. They'll easily be able to demolish my Crimson Tower. But if I can attack them with a unit of Ashen Dawn and the Hunter Cadre, I should be able to kill them, even with the Archimandrite healing them. And the thing about 1500 points is that Old Dominions start with like 4 tokens or something silly, so I feel like they are a bit stronger than 100 Kingdoms at this points level, but sometimes experience does make a difference. So he's moved in with Praetorian Guards, doing about 3 of them here, just traffic jamming it behind the Legionnaires. They will allow the Legionnaires to move forward while they move to camp the local zone, so that at least they have that job to do. Moving another unit of, well, my first unit of Ashen Dawn here. These are the fresh guys that I've just started painting. The plan is to try and box them in so they can only charge one of these 2 cav units, and then the other free unit will charge them in the flank and hopefully beat them that way. So this is the bait. Crimson Tower Knights sitting up there. If I win the Supremacy roll next turn, I'll just charge the Bone Golems and then run around the side with the Ashen Dawn. But if I lose the roll and he attacks me, we can say goodnight to the Crimson Tower Knights, but that will mean, or no pun intended with the Knights, but if he does commit to this little trap here, I can flank him with the Ashen Dawn and shoot him with the Hunter Cadre, so that should be able to deal with it. So yes, Cataphractoi, again, a bit of a missed position. He's not used to playing Last Argument, which is okay. We have the Cataphractoi and the Tyros Strategos coming up the right-hand flank. They'll be going through a forest here, and they'll make it into combat eventually, but this move here might be a little bit too slow. So I'm bringing my own unit of Crimson Tower Knights with Prior Commander through the middle, just ready to respond with anything that might attack that zone that I'm camping there. I don't really want him to score too quickly, but part of the problem with 1500 points, as you can see, is that on the left he's got the Athenatoi and the Cataphracts, but the carriers can't score. So as soon as I wipe out the Athenatoi, that's going to mean that he's only going to be able to actually score on one of those 2 zones, whereas on the other side of the table I can actually bring in enough muscle there to have scoring units on both locations. So yeah, I got up to 12, he's on 6, starting off with the Crimson Tower Knights because I want to charge the Bone Golems. That's the positioning, as you can see. If the Bone Golems win, they go straight into the Crimson Tower Knights on the right, and I can follow up, and on the left, it looks like his army will be a little bit too slow to take advantage of their strong position. So he does charge me, and as soon as the aura, so he kills 2 knights when he charges in with the impacts and the clash, and the aura of death, once the Crimson Towers activate, will kill that unit too. Archimandrite moving around to try and actually boost the carries, but not really in a great position to do much. We have Bastion over here from the men-at-arms to help them against the explosive spells of the Archimandrite. Athenatoi rushing forward, they want to try and get in my grill here. Not the best move, really, because the Crimson Tower Knights can just march charge them and massacre them. The carries are now being roadblocked a bit by the Athenatoi, so not best positioning, but they're trying to actually do some shooting onto my objective. This thing here actually marks out an objective. We then have the Legionnaires march charging into close combat, and actually will stop me from scoring, which is a little bit painful, because he has Memories of Old. So there's that. We have the Hunter Cadre, which can actually shoot over top of the infantry because the Bone Golems are size 2, so I'm able to shoot overhead and strip a couple wounds. The Praetorians, seeing that the Legionnaires have moved away from the zone, could just back up to the side here and capture that while everything else is going on, which is a great little job for them. On this side, the men-at-arms are just marching through to get out of the way of the Crimson Towers. They're also planning on just moving towards the left there and just delaying the Cataphractoi for as long as possible, possibly giving me a chance to delete the Athenatoi and the carries with the Crimson Towers. And when the Cataphracts eventually mop up this side of the table, he'll only be able to score in one zone, as we talked about. So, with the traps being sprung, the Ashen Dawn charge to into the Bone Golems here and obliterate them. Well, not obliterate them, they're Bone Golems. You can't quite obliterate any Bone Golems, reduce them to like one stand. And the Cataphract's just getting a bit closer to the men-at-arms. Not the best position, again, because it does allow me to just run in front of them. So with your cataphracts, you kind of want to avoid forests, and you want to sort of just find a bit of an angle. Going 4 stands wide is good in some cases, but also since you're mostly doing impact hits once you reach tier 2, which is quite easy to do at 1500 points, you kind of want to be a bit more maneuverable with them. We then have the second unit of Ashen Dawn, and it sort of feels a little bit ugly here, but like even though Ashen Dawn have received a nerf, when you're playing 2 units of them at 1500 points, they do feel very, very impactful. Of course, just setting up for a flank charge in the Archimandrite's unit so that we can then march over the other side of the battlefield and just keep scoring. So Crimson Tower is rushing into the Athenatoi to smash them. I believe this is the following turn, and we have Blessed at some point. No, I think that was the end of the turn. Yeah, so I've actually just charged in with an amazing roll from the Crimson Tower Knights, wiping out the Athenatoi just purely from rolling so well. So my luck being amazing here as well. But you can see what's going to happen here. Ashen Dawn into the flank of the Legionnaires. The other Ashen Dawn wipe out the Bone Golems, and then we go after the Praetorians. So these guys go straight into the carries, murdering them as well. So things going quite well. Over here, the Bone Golems actually come back from the Archimandrite being just close enough to do the healing on them. We then have the Men-at-Arms putting up Bastion and doing maybe like 1 or 2 wounds to Legionaries. Over here, the other Men-at-Arms just rushing to the flank of the Cataphractor to stop them from charging, which will delay them even further. Over here, the carries fighting back, but not being able to do too much. Ashen Dawn up against this 1 Bone Golem, which they're able to clean up eventually. The Men-at-Arms being reduced to like 1 or 2 wounds left from the Archimandrite's unit, so that's kind of not ideal because they are there for scoring, and you can sort of see why I took them, can't you? Because, you know, that allows the Ashen Dawn to move off and fight elsewhere rather than just babysitting a zone. Speaking of Ashen Dawn, they charge into the flank here of the Legionnaires and wipe almost all of them out. Yep, strips them down to just a couple of stands left, plus the character. And Praetorian Guards just have to sort of hang pot. My opponent tried charging here, but he rolled a 1. So he failed that charge. And I explained to him after he did that, it's probably good that you failed it, because you weren't going to do any damage to the Ashen Dawn. They still have Blessed available. And that way you move off your own zone, you wouldn't be scoring. So it's kind of good that he failed the charge. Cataphractor turning around, wiping out the Men-at-Arms, and the Hunter Cadre shooting straight into point blank at the Legionnaires, doing a brutal amount of damage to them at close range. Moving on to the next turn, Ashen Dawn will be going first, so you can sort of see here what I want to do. I want to actually kill the Bone Golem, I want to kill the Legionnaires. So the Cataphractoi do manage to break out from the Men-at-Arms, but they're having to go through a forest, so they're not doing their impact hits, so they're really getting the short end of the stick here in terms of abilities, but they will now be able to fight the Crimson Tower and remove them eventually. So Crimson Tower, speaking of which, they are doing some more attacks to kill the carries and just smack back at the Cataphractoi a little bit. Bone Golem now being hunted down or bashed into the ground by the Ashen Dawn. We have the Legionnaires being cleaned up as well, so that's what it's looking like. 2 units versus the Praetorians, but I've got to keep one of these units onto my own zone, otherwise I can't score. So that being said, the Hunter Cadre turn around and they're able to shoot at the Cataphracts. This will mean that in the late game, once he kills my Crimson Towers, he will either get shot to death by Hunter Cadre and not be able to score in the last 1 or 2 turns, or if he charges me, he won't be able to stick around on his zone. So that's why this is a winning position here for 100 Kingdoms. I'm 2 points ahead at this point, and there's no way for him to overtake me. So yeah, just a few more fights between the Crimson Towers. He does eventually go after the Hunter Cadre. I'm going after the Praetorians, and I'm just camping both zones on that side of the table. He does move over to kill the objective to finish that off to get a few points, but it does mean that he leaves the zone. So we end the game here with them wiping out the Hunter Cadre, and that pretty much being it. Okay. So on to turn 2, game 2. I'm up against Brian with his 100 Kingdoms, and he's running a similar list to me, but he bought that new box set that came out recently where you have 1 Crimson Tower, 1 Sealed Temple, I think another Sealed Temple, and 2 units of Crimson Tower, 1 Sealed Temple, and 1 Ashen Dawn. So similar list to me, except I've got 2 Ashen Dawn instead of 1 of the Sealed Temples, and he has 1 Men-at-Arms instead of my 2, but he's got 2 crossbowmen, and he's got a Mage of Fire with Kiss Farewell and Focus. So he's got a shoot to your army. I like his army better for this specific matchup because the mage has the ability to just really churn through my knights late game because of her deadly shot and the AP from the crossbowmen, and of course fire dart being AP too. And she could do all of that while the melee is going on between my knights and his knights. So really preferred his list for this matchup. Having said that, I get to score quicker with my Vanguard men-at-arms. So I choose to move move nothing on turn 1. I'm keeping the Rangers back, the Cadre back, and he's bringing on his mage and both crossbows. There you can see them. I'm then bringing in only the men-at-arms and the Imperial Commander. So turn 2 brings on the men-at-arms on the left here. These guys are just sneaking up the side to help protect the flank of my main regiment of men-at-arms, which go there. Then he takes the Seal Temple around the opposite side, so they're just going to try and swing around towards my home base. This is head-to-head, by the way, so you can see the main 3-point zone out in the middle, his home base 4-point zone, and my one, which is completely undefended right now. All right, so moving on to the next turn, I have to bring in my Hunter Cadre. I can't keep them off. So turn 1, I thought, well, he's in range to move up and shoot and fire dart me. But I could use Bastion. So I'm deciding to Bastion and triple march here into the zone. I'm staying out of range for him to get the +1 barrage, but I know that he can actually shoot me with the Mage's unit. And not only will he be aiming, but he'll have the deadly shot from the Mage and fire dart as well. So I did the math and I thought, this is going to result in me losing 2 stands and being broken and not being able to score in most variations of the math here, which is not very nice, but it allows me to put enough pressure on him that next turn I'll have several units within range, and I can either march charge him if I'm not broken, or I can rally and have something else in his face. So I decided to go with that play. Over the other side, his men-at-arms just moving a little bit further forward, not coming quite into range just yet. That gives some space for his prior commander with his Crimson Tower to come in right behind them. My Hunter Cadre are triple marching up here, and the idea here is that if he shoots my men-at-arms, he'll devastate them. If he shoots them again to clear them out, I'll get one shot off with the Hunter Cadre aiming, hopefully chipping down his regiment a bit more. We then have the Seal Temple moving even further around the board on this other flank. My men-at-arms setting up here just very carefully so that if he charges them later in the game, they're going to have the trees in front of them, which are going to block his impact hits, which is really important. That's going to bog him down and give me the chance to set up my own cavalry opposite them later. Okay, so the Mage has a round of shooting here, which wipes out 1 stand and inflicts another wound on another unit. So it's a bit underwhelming in terms of that shooting, but she does still have the fire dart left to go, so that is likely to trash my unit. I've moved up my own Crimson Tower Knights of just 3 without the prior commander behind the Hunter Cadre. So the big play of the game, the big gamble here, is that if I win the supremacy roll, these guys can march and then charge, probably needing like a 2+. This is broken ground here, so they'll actually take 2 wounds on every roll of a 6. But the thing is, if I get that charge, he can't make any saves at all because the brutal impact, and the terrifying is going to take his resolve down to 1. So the chances of me wiping out his unit aren't that bad. I could potentially just crush him there and kill his warlord, a character, a unit. I get 6 points for that, and it stops him from shooting me for the rest of the game, which will put me into the lead. So the fire dart does go off. It does break the regiment here, so I can't score, and I won't be able to march charge because I'll have to rally later on. But the thing is, the character's still alive, the warlord's still there, the unit's still there, they can move back, they can rally later, and when the battle starts happening elsewhere, they can sneakily start scoring for the rest of the game. Then here comes my second unit of Crimson Tower. They're moving through the middle, and I want them to be able to march charge anything that touches the edge of the zone there for later. And that's also where this character can be useful as well, because he can still screen things. He can still get in the way, and he can still use Bastion, so he can still be extremely annoying. So quite happy with that positioning. Over here, his Mercenary Crossmen double marching over here, just getting ready to shoot whatever I put here to defend this one zone. So I've decided to bring in 1 unit of Ashen Dawn here, and the thinking here is that if he moves to attack with a Seal Temple, they're never going to beat the Ashen Dawn because there's too much armor there. They've got no cleave, no brutal impact, And if he comes in to secure my zone, I can march charge onto him, and then we'll never see the Sealed Temple ever again. So the standoff here is really just waiting for the crossbows to catch up and shoot at me, but it's going to take too many turns for him to strip a stand away. I'm also going to get one turn where I have hardened from the supremacy. So this is the tactic here, is just to delay those 2 units for a really, really long time, while the rest of my army mops up and scores 3 points a turn on the main zone. If he does eventually beat me here and scores 4 points, I feel like it might be too late for him, and there's even an opportunity for me to move in aggressively and actually kill his scoring unit. Even if I lose my Ashen Dawn in the process, his crossbowman can't score, so as long as he deploys everything else on the other side of the table, I'm pretty good in this position. His unit of Ashen Dawn come in here behind the mage, and this is why it's even more important that I get the Crimson Tower in there in the way, to just delay this unit from getting onto the zone even further. So this is the important turn. Crimson Tower going first if I win the supremacy roll, and here's a look at the battlefield. So we do have me winning the supremacy roll, which is really fortuitous. If I hadn't won it, I'd be in a bad spot. But they march, they charge, and the real miracle here is they left the crossmen on like 1 wound. So that means that the Ashen Dawn behind them are blocked. So it's actually even worse for my opponent here, leaving him in a situation where he's traffic jammed the Ashen Dawn for a turn, and I can actually do a lot of other stuff elsewhere in the battlefield. So this is really an advantage to me right now. The Imperial officer can then rally and move backwards and bastion, and the knights can overtake him, and he can just score for the rest of the game, which is just beautiful. Really great position. So he brings in his own unit of Crimson Tower here, and they are opposite the Hunter Cadre. There's going to be a bit of shootout, but I still have 1 more unit of Ashen Dawn to bring on the table, so we're not too worried about these guys. Sealed Temple moving to the corner and like not attacking, and this is good for me. It buys time. He's paying approximately 200 for his unit of Sealed Temple. I've got 250 for my Ashen Dawn. Then he's got another 105 for his archers. So I'm not committing more points to the side of the battlefield than I realistically need to, and I still have an opportunity to move through and aggressively take care of him if I really want to. Or if things get really bad, I can even divert the Ashen Dawn towards the center of the battlefield if I absolutely had to. Hunter Cadre now shooting at the Crimson Tower Knights and stripping a couple of wounds in the distance. And his men-at-arms and his Crimson Tower over here, they can't really do much, because if they move to the zone, I've still got my own Crimson Tower Knights and Pyro Commander, which are ready to activate. So he has to be cagey here. These guys back here just sitting in the forest, and they can't really be charged either because of the trees. So very happy with my positioning here. He then decides to move his little unit onto the zone. This is about as far as they can get with the double march and the wheeling and so forth, and he's got 3 there to my 2, but it puts me in range for the Priority Commander. So he will score unless I commit. The second unit of Ashen Dawn are set up here opposite the Crimson Tower, and the good thing about this is that I eventually will have a supremacy turn where if he charges me, I'll have hardened, and the march charge from the Crimson Tower will not kill the Ashen Dawn, but in the future turns, the Ashen Dawn will just wreck those Crimson Tower, and I'll even have the Hunter Cadre shooting in the flank, ignoring the shield. If he march charges into the Hunter Cadre, of course, he could do some damage. I do have Fearless, I do have Evasion, so awesome situation for me, and the flank charge from the Ashen Dawn will absolutely obliterate them. I could even look at just ignoring them and moving past them and just attacking his objective zone at the top left there, which would be crazy. So, unfortunately, his Ashen Dawn is roadblocked, so they're just moving around. I feel sorry for him at this point. His other unit of crossbows moving forward to try and get some pot shots at the Ashen Dawn on this side. This is where, of course, I can march charge with my Priority Commander into his men-at-arms, allowing me to score the zone. Unfortunately, with it not being the supremacy turn, the rolls were a little bit low, and I didn't actually destroy him. I only did one stand. So what we're thinking of doing here is activating the Crimson Tower Knights that are in combat with the Mage at this point and try to go first. As you can see, what we want to do is kill the Mage and then charge the Ashen Dawn. But unfortunately, I lost the roll, so the Mage did go first, did a bit of damage, didn't kill him. I then attacked her. She died, and the Ashen Dawn then charged me and wiped me out. So not terrible, but not the best. So they're free to move through. I've got the Hunter Cadre shooting at his Crimson Tower again. I decided I want to strip a few more wounds off them. I then have a clash action between, I think this is his men-at-arms attacking me, so not really doing very much. And unfortunately for him, he has to activate his Crimson Tower Knights too early. I think he put his card a little bit too high in the stack. So this wastes their activation. It means that I'm now free to just get in his way with my guys or do a clash on his men-at-arms. And I think I've got too many screening units for him, really, to get the jump on me. By the way, his priority commander has Armor of Dominion, so he spent like 40 points on something which is not going to help him very much in this particular game. I can see why it'd be good against ranging guards and things like that, but I'm using my 40 points on just more stuff. Okay, so I decided to commit my men-at-arms here just to try and kill the ones in front of me, because that will still block his charge. And then once he wipes out my men-at-arms, I can go after him with my Crimson Tower. So it's like a game of chess where it's like, oh, if he takes my pawn with his bishop, then I can recapture with my knight, but he captures with his rook. It's like that kind of situation. Unfortunately, though, we left him on 1 wound. So this was an abysmal roll, even with like ignoring the shields, re-rolling failed morale checks. He has got 1 wound left, so we're not even free to move around with the priority commander's unit, so this becomes problematic. Over here, more shots into the Ashen Dawn, stripping a few more wounds with the mercenary crossbowman. He also has his Crimson Tower Knights here marching forward and then charging, and the Brutal Impact's doing a little bit of work here, but not really enough work to kill the whole stand. We do have Blessed, and we are Fearless, so I feel like this wasn't the best move, not the best place for the Crimson Tower to be, but I'm not really sure where else it would have gone. Over here, Steel Temple's still doing nothing, and that's just the beauty of Ashen Dawn being able to keep the enemy at arm's length. And they can't attack, they can't defend, they can't score, so that unit of Ashen Dawn doing fine. So here's the fun play. I'm just going to skip back a few photos. This is the situation where my Crimson Tower Knights have not activated yet. He's got this unit with 1 wound left. What I can do is clash, which removes the 1 wound, and then I can wheel past this area so I don't clip the tower. I can then, after I've wheeled to face his Crimson Tower Knights, I can charge all the way through my own unit to the other side and wheel into contact. And because it's automatically within charge range, this is actually a legal move here where I come all the way past. And that's going to mean that I get the jump on him, I do a little bit of damage from the Brutal Impact, and next turn we're both going to have our supremacy, but he's losing like a couple of stands worth of guys here, so that pretty much seals the game. All right, so going to the next turn, that's what the battlefield looks like. I'm about to mop up in the center, and he's still yet to score on the left. I'm getting 3 points per round from the men-at-arms being on that zone. So he decides to march and then charge without clashing with the Ashen Dawn, which does a little bit of damage to the men-at-arms here. Unfortunately, just too far away, unwieldy position. Hunter Cadre shooting into combat with the Crimson Tower Knights, wrecking them really, reducing them to like 1 stand. He's shooting at my Ashen Dawn, but I have hardened at this point, so taking even less damage. My unit here, he's got 1 wound left on his Crimson Tower Knights, so I clash with all of my might, but he's got 4s with rerolls, and I did 0 damage. That's how it was. So Ashen Dawn cleaning up the Crimson Tower with the first clash and then marching with the second action, and you can see that I can just do a double march over to this zone in the next couple of turns, and that will finish it. Men-at-Arms trying to attack the Ashen Dawn, but doing no damage. On to the next turn. You can sort of see the outlying situation here, where eventually he'll start scoring, but I've got 3 stands of Men-at-Arms and another 2 here, including the Imperial Officer, so he's still not getting the 3-pointer. So over here he does massacre the Men-at-Arms and moves off the zone into combat with my Knights. He gets some impact hits, does some damage there. I'm then able to kill his priority commander's unit with my my priority commander here, leaving him with just Ashen Dawn. Continuing to shoot at me with his crossbows, erasing 1 stand now, so I'm down to two stands of Ashen Dawn. Moving my Imperial Officer in behind his Ashen Dawn so he can't get onto the zone immediately, which is kind of funny. And then he decides to just go balls to the wall, march charge with the Steel Temple. And I've only got 2 stands left, but this charge does nothing because I got Blessed, so not even 1 wound. And the counterattack from the Ashen Dawn will just blitz them, so that takes away his chance of winning. And these Hunter Cadre here can shoot into combat against his Ashen Dawn, doing very little. And my guy's moving over to capture the zone, so that's pretty much it. These Seal Temple get crushed, and he's now got just the 2 stands of Ashen Dawn over here, still being whittled away by my unit. And we get to the point where I've got the zone at the top left, he's got the zone on the right, eventually, once it gets through these guys on like turn 10. So yeah, it was a pretty convincing win to me, and then we come to the 3rd and final round against my buddy Matt, who has been thrashing me lately with his Old Dominion. You guys have been seeing the bat reps. My Dwegam getting stomped, my 100 Kingdoms getting stomped. There have been a couple of games that I didn't even post the game because I got so badly wrecked, and Old Dominion is just such a tough matchup at the moment. Having said that, I've got 2 units of Ashen Dawn, and he's not running a Fallen Divinity, he's not running any Bone Golems, he's running a list with a Exiliarch, and 2 Rangians, Praetorians, a few Caryatids. So yeah, there is that. We're playing Echelon with the two zones in the middle. No lights for him. I've decided to march directly up with the Hunter Cadre, getting them in range to shoot his Legionaries if he uses Optio to come up to that zone. There is a hill in the way though, so that could be a little bit awkward. I can actually shoot this zone too once I come in closer, not the zone, this objective marker next to them. So next up, bringing in all of the men-at-arms. He comes in here with his Hierodeacon, not fast enough to hit the zone yet. The zone is sort of this shadowy area right here. I'm using Vanguard to move in with the officer onto this zone here, turn 2. Opposite them is the Praetorian unit. Watch out though, there is a square objective there which you can't Enya move on, so that's going to mess him up a little bit. I'm moving in my other screening unit. These guys are there just to be annoying. So the Hunter Cadre, realizing they're not in range yet, they just pull back a little bit and then shoot at that objective, stripping 1 wound. So next turn, I just want to delay with my characters and activate everything else next after that, with the more important stuff coming in last. So there it is, the overview. I've got 2 points, and I'll be leading by 2 points for the foreseeable future until he can break me on this side of the table. So seeing that he's misplayed his Praetorians, he decides to charge clash this objective. Can only do 1 wound because they're a medium regiment. And then my Hunter Cadre shooting past the hill there. He's actually kind of made another misplay here with his Hierodeacon. The hill blocks line of sight to my unit, and these guys can shoot past the hill because they can see the Legionnaires, so stripping a few wounds from them. I then bring in my Crimson Tower behind the men-at-arms. I want to have 1 turn at least where I can charge and clash and reroll the brutal impact hits onto the Praetorians to try and reduce them in power. He has not taken Aventine Armor. He does not have Eternal Discipline. So if I can beat that unit, that'd be great. But he's likely to get a Supremacy turn from the Exiliarch with the March Charge Clash goodness, or the double clashing goodness before that happens. We'll see. Yeah, so as you can see, a Hierodeacon can't see past the hill, and I've got these archers there to shoot him. Okay, so the men-at-arms decide to move a little bit further forward. They are placed so that if I do get attacked and killed, the gap between the Crimson Towers and the front of this unit will be 8 inches, so I can auto-charge, quite an important measurement. These guys marching up a little bit further, they want to be annoying. This unit up the top here is Caryatids. I want him to pay attention to this unit so I can buy myself time. They are not really going to be worth anything other than screening, so I just want him to take as long as possible. I want to get in the way of his Supremacy turn where he gets a lot of movement and attacking from things. If these guys are just in the way as fodder, that'll be great. So his first unit of Varangians coming in behind the Hierodeacon. A little bit questionable because these guys are a bit further away from the action, so they may not be able to get the benefit of the Supremacy turn at the same time that the Praetorians do. So a bit questionable. The Hunter Cadre have activated. The Hierodeacon adds more dark power. I then had the cunning idea of bringing the other Crimson Tower Knights all the way around the side. And the thinking there is that if he's been blocked off really by that objective, I might eventually get the Crimson Tower Knights on the flank of the Praetorians, which would be really helpful, or even the Caryatids. The Caryatids are the one thing causing me the headache this game, because over several turns they will kill Ashen Dawn, they'll easily kill Crimson Towers, they're just going to be shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting. If I sneak all the way around the side, I might be able to get to a point where if I win a Supremacy roll, I can surprise them. But I am worried about him bringing his 1 more unit of Legionnaires on that side as well, in which case I'll have to spend a bit of time killing them. But the end goal is that I should be able to get something in the flank because of the positioning in that house. I do have 2 units of Ashen Dawn though, so these guys could act as a screen for the Ashen Dawn, so the creators have to shoot the Crimson Tower Knights. That's the thinking. So here comes the second unit, or the first unit of Ashen Dawn. They come in behind the first unit of Crimson Towers here. The double wave. So if he distracts me with a unit of Varangians or Legionnaires, I can send 1 unit after that and then sweep in through the middle and hopefully get the Praetorians in the flank before they can get to my zone. Praetorians, of course, with the Arrow of Death for goodness, as they always do. Okay, so here is the overall battlefield setup. Now, I took this photo before we did the Supremacy roll. I went to the bathroom and I had a brainwave. I was like, I just thought of something funny I could do. This is the picture of before the turn starts. You see this unit of men-at-arms here. If I win the Supremacy roll, I could actually go with them first, double march them right in front of the Praetorians, and he would not legally be able to charge them because if he moves, he'd actually have to end with his stands on top of the objective, which is illegal. And I wouldn't be able to swing to him because, you know, to make contact with me, he'd actually have to overlap this. So that kind of evil plan can be very, very powerful in missions which have those objectives. So if you want to be at your best with Conquest, do brush up on all the little tactics that you can use like that. So this is the revised picture after I went to the bathroom, had that brainwave, and came back to the table. I then won the Supremacy roll. And these guys march to directly 1 inch away from him. And you can see here that there's no way he can legally charge me, because if he wheels in any direction, he's going to be just overlapping that objective very slightly, so he can't do it. What have we got here? So the Hierodeacon activating and I think adding some more dark power to the pool or something. No, he's actually marching and then charging, which is crazy, because Hunter Cadre are actually very good in close combat. So this is really interesting. They do charge, but they whiff the rolls, and the Hunter Cadre are like Evasion 2. They have Fearless. They don't actually lose a stand, which is incredible. The Hunter Cadre then clash at, clash 4 with Inspired and cleave 1, and he's saving on 1s. I've already weakened him a little bit with shooting, and this somehow wipes out his entire unit of Legionnaires. So I just couldn't believe my luck at this point in the game. Just insane advantage going to me already. So he loses all of his Legionnaires and his Hierodeacon, and this is awful because it means he's going to have to commit another unit of Legionnaires to that zone because he's got to keep something on that zone at all times. The Caryatids shooting at my men-at-arms, but even though he's got 4 of them at point-blank range with the +1 from the Memories of Old, because he's at tier 2, he still doesn't wipe out the men-at-arms because he's got to do 12 wounds, right? So he does something like 10 wounds. So they're still in that annoying position there. So really, really kind of foiling a lot of these undead plans, which is hilarious. You can see the Praetorian Guards just marching to the side. They can't clash. They can't do a thing. They're just getting out of the way. They're not even attacking the objective. So it's just like a comedy of errors, really. Over here, the Varangi Guards now move on to his zone. You can sort of see they want to go after the Hunter Cadre, but again, Hunter Cadre Evasion 2. They've got Fearless. They're not going to die immediately. So kind of happy about that. All right, my guys here just cagely moving through. They're moving as far as they can without taking 4 zones off the area. So you can see at the bottom there's like 4 stands clipping it. And then I want to follow up with my my Priority Commander. Ideally, I'd never have a situation where he's touching the zone, and I always want to be fighting him while I'm touching the zone to keep scoring at all times. Very important. So that's why these guys are following up here behind the Men-at-Arms unit, the Crimson Tower, I mean. His second unit of Ranger Guards, I was so sure that he would come around the flank where I'm trying to sneak around with some Crimson Towers, but he decided to come through the middle. I think because he wants to attack in a wave with all 3 of his elite heavy infantry units getting the March Charge Clash on the Supremacy turn. He wants as much of that as possible, so that's interesting. It does allow me to continue sneaking here with a double march from the Crimson Towers. You can see that I can actually, in the next turn, march and then charge the flank of the Caryatids if I roll high enough on the charge. I do have a reroll, so that could be sneaky, because if I could stop them from shooting, that means that I don't lose like mountains of knights every single volley. So yeah, that's where we're at. He's got his second unit of Legionnaires coming in to camp the zone, as he should. He needs them there. We were talking about like move them around the side here and just charging into the flank the following turn, which would have been extremely annoying, but I could have then cleaned them up with the Ashen Dawn. That would have freed these guys up to go after the Creatids anyway, so yeah, it would have been interesting. And of course, my other unit of Ashen Dawn here, just using the screen. But this has put up a really cool opportunity here, where if I'm really fortunate, I can actually march charge the Crimson Tower into the side of the Creatids at the top. And I might even be able to get the Ashen Dawn into the side of the Praetorians, which would be ideal and also game-winning. But this objective might block me off, so it may require a reform at some point. Speaking of Ashen Dawn, I've got another one. 1,500 points, 2 units, man. Like, they've just been nerfed. They've gone up to 250 points, and they still feel so incredibly strong. So the second unit comes in behind the Hunter Cadre, which means if the Varangian Guard come in and wipe them out, the Ashen Dawn can then countercharge, and with the impact hits and the Supremacy turn making them 7 attacks each, that should bowl them over. By the way, I feel like the Supremacy turn, maybe they should change it so that the Ashen Dawn don't get the +1 attack or hardened, and then just leave the points the same. That could actually go a long way to fixing them, because every game I play with them, that little buff comes in real handy. So my card stack, with the Crimson Tower going first to try and sneak in against the Creatids, and the other Crimson Towers, they are going to be going last up against the Praetorians potentially. And there's the zoomed out look at the table. So there it is there. I think he did have one opportunity to shoot my Crimson Towers, but didn't quite manage it. Didn't quite take out a stand here. Oh no, it's happening this turn. So he does turn them around a little bit. He doesn't have much room to maneuver, and only 3 stands are in range, thank God. So he shoots long range and strips me down to like 2 wounds left on 1 stand, but doesn't quite wipe out the stand. So yeah, in fact, 4 wounds, so my luck continues. I only have 1 wound left, but I have all 3 stands, which means charging, needing like a 3+ with a reroll, so pretty good. And I come in the flank, and it's the Supremacy turn, so I've basically got... Is it the Supremacy? Yeah, I think this is Supremacy turn. So I've basically got the Brutal Impacts, which wipe out 1 full stand of Creatids and wounds the next one. And these guys are going to be terrible in close combat, giving me plenty of time to rub them down. So this is a huge win for me. It's really important. Over here, his Praetorian Guards move in, clash the Men-at-Arms, get rid of them. Hunter Cadre shooting his Varangian Guards, popping off a couple of wounds. The other Varangians just sitting and milling around. The Men-at-Arms over here just maneuvering to exactly a position where if he charges me, he's going to have a couple of stands not in contact because he can't overlap this objective. This objective is so annoying in so many different games that I'm using it to my advantage here. I don't want him to fully wipe out this unit, and I want the Knights to be able to get a clean charge into the Praetorians without having to suffer any Awe of Death. Alright, so Varangian Guards continuing to mobilize. Over here, the Ashen Dawn doing a double march. My plan is to next turn reform them and then scoot them through this gap here so that I can pin down the Praetorian Guards basically for the rest of the game, nullify his Supremacy turn, and that will at least easily allow me to mop up the rest of his army with all of my Knights elsewhere and keep the Men-at-Arms on the zone, mind you. Alright, so everybody just posturing. He is reforming his Praetorian Guards a little bit, I think, but no action just yet. So this is going to be the Supremacy turn from Old Dominion. Ashen Dawn wanting to go first because we want to box in that Praetorian Guards unit quite crucially. So that's how the battlefield looks. And I'm just loving life here because I'm too far away from his Praetorian Guards for them to really get a lot of work done onto my back rank. It's fine if they take out the Men-at-Arms or the Hunter Cadre because then I've got all the cav left. So over here, he actually activates the Creatids first. They reform and they attack the Knights, killing like 1 stand, but that's all they can do. And without shooting, they're not very effective. So I'm glad he activated them first because I can now reform and charge this unit. I get a few impact hits off, but I've got Blessed. Even though he gets 2 clash actions against me, the Ashen Dawn are in a great position because I'm limiting the exposure and I've got Blessed on one of the rounds. So he then moves forward with his Varangian Guard. He gets the charge off onto the Hunter Cadre, attacks them and wipes them out, killing them all, which is ideal for me because then I can just get a clean charge off with my unit. He was really hoping he'd leave like the last stand there with 1 wound left to block me off. Over here, the retaliation against the Creatids drops him down to 2 stands left. His Praetorians reform and then double clash my Ashen Dawn, but because of Blessed on one of the clash rolls, didn't even lose that stand at the back. So these guys are going to be locked in combat for a long time. The Exiliarch has the sword, which does double morale checks, but up against Resolve 5 and Fearless, it's quite, quite ineffective. Over here, the Men-at-Arms just posturing yet again, just to try and wait. They don't want to contact the Praetorians because then they start taking Aura of Death damage. So he decides to go for the long bomb, marching and then charging, needing a high roll, which he makes, and then clashing with the Varangians, which easily sweep the Men-at-Arms because he's going on the flank, cleave 3, ignoring shields, just wipes his guys out completely, and the morale checks have to be re-rolled. They've got inspired, so great little photo. They're absolutely spanking. Over this side, the Ashen Dawn charge. This is the Supremacy turn. No, is it? I can't quite remember. But either way, you got 9 rolls for impact hits and at least 18 for the clash with Blessed because the Varangians have already activated. This completely wipes out the Varangians because they've already been softened up from shooting. So just a golden moment there. The Crimson Tower Knights charging the flank of the other Varangians are wiping them out through the impact hits and the clash action. And, well, not quite wiping them out, but you can sort of see that this is game over now. He can't beat the Crimson Tower Knights with his Creatids. He can't beat the Ashen Dawn with his Praetorian Guards. And my Ashen Dawn simply walk over and bash that zone. So we didn't play the rest of the game out, but we calculated that I'd be able to score 6 points per round for the last 3 rounds. So I ended with 30-10, and that's the end of the tournament. So I won. On paper, looked like very easily, but that second game against 100 Kingdoms, I could have lost that, especially if the mage had been able to get another activation in there, or if it had been positioned a little bit better. I did have a couple of lucky rolls here and there in that particular game, but I also did feel like I played slightly better. I just didn't build my list as well as he did for that particular matchup. But as it happens, the Men-at-Arms was still very useful across all 3 games for scoring and screening. Ashen Dawn, are they too strong? Well, I don't want people to watch this video and come away from this particular video with, the feeling that this is confirmation, this is data, that they are still too powerful. It might be fine at 250 points. Remember, I'm playing against a few people who don't quite play as much as me. I studied the game a little bit more than them, so I'm a slightly better player. And it is just 3 rounds. Like, it's not really good data. I played against Old Dominion and 100 Kingdoms, so we're not seeing me play against factions like Nords and Wadroon and all of that. Sorcerer King, so it could definitely be different. My personal feeling is that they're going to continue to get nerfed because people still keep taking them. I'm going to still keep taking them. I feel at this point, the points increase is not the right way to do it. Strip their attacks down a little bit. I think you'll still take them at that point, but maybe rework the Priority Commander's ability so that the Warband with the Knights and the Ashen Dawn just doesn't become, like, automatic. There's a danger of nerfing 100 Kingdoms too much, but I think if you do that, if you stop the Priority Commander's supremacy ability from being so good, then 100 Kingdoms are just going to be like infantry only for ages without really playing any cavalry, which would be kind of a bummer. And 100 Kingdoms don't necessarily feel like they're the strongest faction in the game at the moment. I think it's somewhere between Spires and Old Dominion and 100 Kingdoms. I'm not too sure what the order is, but I think they're the top 3 at the moment. City-State's definitely the worst faction, and Nords, Wadroon, Sorcerer Kings, sort of in that mid-tier, is where I feel like it's at the moment. Yeah, I'll also say that when I'm building army lists at the moment, I'm not necessarily going for the Priority Commander and 4 groups of knights every single list. I'm looking at some which have the mage with the Men-at-Arms. I have a very crazy build at the moment where it's like the mage and like 9 stands of Men-at-Arms with Elysian Fragment and focused with Water Mage so that it's just so hard to kill them, and anything strong enough to do a lot of damage to them is susceptible for taking the smite damage from Elysian Fragment. So we're going to see some games with that happening. But in the meantime, yeah, I think Ashen Dawn is still very competitive. They have not been nerfed into the ground, which is good, and it costs more to take them now. So we're heading in a good direction. Are we 100% there yet? No. But I think Parabellum is doing a pretty good job, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little overview of my games. Had a really good fun time, and won some prizes, so feeling good.